Soma was a young orphan living with his grandfather after his family died. One day his grandfather sat beside him and said, "My son, since your father and mother passed away, you've been living with me. Believe me, you become my entire family. I know my days in this world are few, and I hope you won't continue your life alone like I did. Try to build your own family, Soma, because being surrounded by those you love is worth more than anything in the world." Soma listened to his grandfather's words and was deeply moved. Yet after some time he lost his grandfather as well. He began visiting his grave regularly, drowning in a suffocating loneliness he couldn't overcome. Meanwhile, in another world within one of the kingdoms, serious troubles threatened its survival. The people of the kingdom decided to summon a hero to save them. The kingdom's sorcerers began the summoning ritual, and a huge surge of energy spread across the land, creating the seal of summoning across the entire realm. Back to Soma. He was calmly studying in the library when suddenly a portal opened beneath his feet. In an instant, he was pulled into another world. He found himself flying through the sky, screaming, "What madness is this? What's happening to me?" The seal pulled him forcefully until he landed safely at the summoning site. Soma opened his eyes in shock, unable to understand what just happened. Soldiers immediately took him to the royal hall. There, he saw amazing sights beyond imagination. Suddenly, the king stood up from his throne and said, "Thank you, Soma, for answering our call for help and coming to save us." Soma snapped angrily. "Are you insane? What call? What help? How'd I even end up here?" The king was taken aback by his words, but tried to calm him. "Please be patient. I'll explain everything." The king then began his story. In the continent of this land, different races, humans, dwarves, elves, and even dragons, once lived in perfect harmony. But a great disaster struck. Portals began appearing out of nowhere, releasing countless monsters. These creatures swept across the continent, destroying the lands. Several kingdoms united to fight them, but they failed to hold them back. In the chaos, the kingdoms used up all their resources. The monsters then took over 1/3 of the continent and created a vast realm they called the Demon Lord's Kingdom. Since then, endless wars have raged between the Demon Lord's Kingdom and the other realms. Destruction has spread everywhere because the demons seek to destroy without reason. Soma asked, "And what exactly do you expect from me in all this disaster? Am I supposed to solve your problems?" The king's deputy stepped in. "Listen, Soma, I'll tell you the truth. There's a kingdom called Jayan that's fighting the demon realm. It's a powerful kingdom bearing the heaviest burden of the battle. They get support from other nations that don't fight directly. But this help has strained the entire continent's economy." Soma scoffed. "So, why don't you just pay them? What does this have to do with me?" The deputy replied, "Unfortunately, our economy has collapsed completely. The kingdom also suffers from severe food shortages. We can't fight or pay, so we were left with only one option recorded in our ancient texts: summoning a hero and sending him to the kingdom of Jayan." Soma was stunned. "And what will happen to me if I go there?" The king answered, "That's in the hands of fate, my son. May God's mercy protect you." Soma realized he was in serious danger. He thought of escaping, but feared being captured and forced to go to Jayan. Suddenly an idea struck him. He asked, "If you send me to Jayan, will they stop demanding money from you?" The deputy said, "Of course not. They'll continue asking for support as long as the war continues." Soma pressed further. "So what then? Will you keep summoning heroes every time and sending them there?" The deputy replied, "The last time we summoned a hero was 500 years ago, but now we have no other choice." Soma seized the moment. "You fools! How can you throw away such an opportunity so carelessly? The solution isn't to send heroes to die. It's to build true strength. We must restore the kingdom's economy, get back our resources, and form a powerful army capable of defending our land. Heroes like me can lay the foundations for this. The answer lies with me." In truth, Soma spoke this way just to protect himself, fearing they would send him to Jayan to fight the demons. Later, Soma sat with his hand resting on his cheek, muttering to himself, "Oh Lord, save me from this disaster I've been dragged into." Suddenly, He found the king, the queen, and the deputy sitting with him. Soma asked him to tell him everything about the kingdom in detail. They held a meeting that lasted 3 whole days. During this time, Soma learned every detail about the realm, and he began creating brilliant plans to solve its crisis. We go to him and find Soma completely exhausted, in a pitiful state, attending a meeting inside the royal hall. And there the king shocks everyone by announcing that he will give up the throne of the kingdom in favor of Soma. Yes, making him the new king of this land. At that moment, Soma is struck with disbelief, stunned beyond measure, not knowing what to do. And to make it even more shocking, the king also announces the engagement of Soma to his daughter Licia. Everyone falls into total shock. The news spreads quickly across the entire kingdom, and no one can understand what's happening. On the other side, we see a girl riding swiftly on her horse until she reaches the royal palace. She pushes open the doors and enters where her parents are. And this girl is none other than Licia herself, Soma's fiancée. "Now, my friend," she says to her father, "I heard that the throne has been taken from you. So I came here to restore it to you once more." But the king answers her saying, "There's no such thing, my daughter. Calm yourself. I willingly gave up the throne to Soma because he's truly exceptional, far more suited than I am to rule the kingdom. He's intelligent and hardworking. And remember also that you're now engaged to him." She responds angrily, "How could you do this without even asking my opinion?" And she grows furious. Then she storms off to see Soma. And when she opens the door, she's struck by the sight of a handsome young man before her, yet clearly worn down from endless work, visibly tired. He looks at her and says, "You there? Can you read or not?" She snaps back, "Yes, I'm educated. I can read and calculate as well." He says to her, "Good. Then come and help me with this work." Licia flares up, saying, "Have you lost your mind? I'm Licia, daughter of the king, or rather daughter of the former king." And Soma replies mockingly, "Honestly, I thought you were one of the palace maids with the clothes you're wearing." Then he introduces himself. "I'm now the king, so gather your strength, put your hand with mine, and let's finish this work together." She exclaims in shock, "How rude you are! After taking the throne, now you want to put me to work alongside you." But Soma answers, "By God, I myself don't even know how this happened. I just proposed some economic solutions to your father, and at most I imagine he might appoint me Minister of Finance or something like that. But suddenly, I found him giving up the throne and naming me king of the realm. I was as shocked as you are." When Licia hears this, she apologizes, saying, "I thought you were a fraud who stole the crown from my father, but it was my father who gave it to you willingly." And Soma replies, "As for the throne, I'll work hard to fix the kingdom's condition, and afterward, I'll give it back. As for our engagement, you have the right to break it off right now if you wish." Licia bursts out, "What do you mean break off the engagement? Am I not good enough for you?" Then she asks with concern, "And where will you get the money to restore the kingdom? Do you think we have endless treasure? We barely have anything, my friend." Soma answers, "Don't worry about the money. I've already arranged it." And here we learn that Soma began selling the royal jewels of the kingdom to use the money for repairing and developing the land. Licia is shocked and says, "What? You're selling the treasures of the kingdom to get money? How could you do such a thing?" But he replies, "First of all, these treasures belong to people, and it's only fair that they should benefit from them instead of being hoarded by the royal family alone. And don't worry, I divided the treasures of the kingdom into 3 categories. The first being valuable treasures tied to the kingdom's heritage. The second being treasures with no worth and no historical value. And the third being magical artifacts and ancient weapons. It was only the second category that I sold, which had no value at all. Yet I gathered huge sums from it." Then Licia asks him, "And did you send any money to the kingdom of Jan?" He tells her, "No, because they'll take what's due to them at the last deadline regardless. What matters to me now is to restore the kingdom and save it from poverty." And Soma was truly brilliant because he was also thinking of building a powerful army capable of protecting the kingdom from any danger. And it seemed that Licia began to admire his way of thinking. And so we learn that this world is filled with dragons and legendary creatures alongside magical powers throughout the kingdom. We return to Soma and see a man telling him that he must undergo a magical test. The legends say that the hero possesses tremendous magical power. He undergoes the test and his capacity for magic is measured, leaving him completely shocked, not knowing how to react. Soon after, Licia comes to visit him, enters his chamber, and is amazed to find that Soma has chosen 6 people to help him manage the kingdom's affairs. He had even used his magic to bring feathers to life, giving each one its own consciousness, capable of completing tasks on their own. Licia is struck with awe at what she sees, and she realizes that he appointed these people to track where exactly the kingdom's funds are going and whether some officials are stealing them. And he says to himself, if I discover who's stealing the people's wealth, I won't spare him. I'll take all his possessions. After some time passes, Soma remains in his place, working constantly on the kingdom's duties, but exhaustion weighs heavily on him. He raises his eyes slightly and sees that everyone around him has fallen asleep, even Licia. Soma checks on her gently and suddenly she wakes startled and says, I fell asleep against my will. He replies with a smile, it's fine. You actually look beautiful when you're asleep. Licia blushes deeply, her face red, unable to reply. Then Soma asks her to come out for a short walk as he wishes to speak with her about something important. They ride the horse together, but Soma is clearly terrified of it. So Licia teases him. What weakness? You're supposed to be the man. So pull yourself together and ride in my place. He answers, I only know how to ride motorcycles, and not just that, I can even do tricks with them. Licia stares at him in disbelief, then asks about his family in his own world. He tells her that he's alone, that he lived with his grandfather during the past years, but his grandfather has since passed away, and from that moment he's lived alone. Licia feels sorry for him and says, forgive me for asking. I didn't know that your grandfather had died recently. The young man said to her, don't worry. He was already an old man, and he had lived his life to the fullest. So don't grieve over him. Then Soma took Licia and led her to a vast field planted with cotton in large quantities. He said to her, I want you to focus on my words and understand them well. The land before you is covered with a crop that's not fit for eating, and it's one of the main reasons behind the malnutrition affecting the kingdom. This plant is called the Shirei plant. He continued, listen carefully. Before the demons invaded the northern continent, the northern nations were responsible for growing cotton. But because of those invasions, cotton production decreased greatly. For that reason, some kingdoms turned to growing for profit and abandoned the food crops they had always relied on. As a result, famine struck the entire kingdom because there was no food left. At first, the kingdom sold cotton and bought food since its price was very high. But as time passed, cotton prices collapsed as every kingdom began growing it. So our kingdom could neither sell its cotton nor buy food. That's how the famine came to be. Licia was deeply moved by hearing this and said sadly, how did we not notice this? Soma replied, never mind that. What matters now is to find a solution to this crisis. There are many things you must learn, because the day will come when I leave from here, and before I go, I want to be sure that the kingdom will be safe in your hands. Licia was touched even more by his words, and she didn't want him to leave. After a short while, they returned to the royal palace and sat together at the dining table. There, Soma shared his ideas with Licia about agricultural crops, and together they began creating a plan to achieve self-sufficiency. At that moment, Aisha, the captain of the royal guard, joined them, greeted them, and sat to talk. She asked Soma whether he faced difficulties in ruling, or if there was anything she'd help with. Soma said, to begin with, the greatest problem I face is with the old officials, except for the king's deputy. He's a blessed man whose presence is invaluable. As for the rest, their failures beyond description, and we must find others who are truly trustworthy. If they had been successful, the kingdom wouldn't have reached the edge of collapse. After that, Soma made an unusual request to Licia. He said to her, I heard that you have something like a live broadcast. She replied, yes. So we learned that the kingdom had a kind of magical stones that could transmit live images from the royal palace to every corner of the realm. Souma then asked Licia to help him use his broadcast because he needed to speak directly to the people. He wanted to recruit people from among the population for very special tasks, not based on their education, as the kingdom had always done, but rather on their talent. Then he began addressing the people of the kingdom, saying, "I need those who truly love their homeland. Whatever your talent may be, the kingdom needs you. There's no difference between rich and poor, because it's your talent alone that will determine your destiny. The kingdom is going through a time of great hardship, and I need your help to overcome this trial. The people of this kingdom deserve a better life, and our children deserve that we work hard for their sake." He continued to inspire them. "Never think that your talent is worthless, because this is my decision. I'll hold many competitions, and those most talented will receive huge financial rewards. If you believe you're talented, then come to me at the palace where I'll be waiting for you. And let me remind you once more, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, man or woman. What matters is that you're excellent in your craft, so that you can serve the kingdom." The people responded to his words with extraordinary enthusiasm, and when the broadcast ended, Souma appeared greatly hopeful. Many talented people decided to head to the royal palace to present their skills before the new king. We're then taken back to an earlier moment when Souma was speaking to Licia in the cotton field, particularly when he told her, "You must learn everything so that when I leave, I can rest assured the kingdom will prosper under your rule." Suddenly, Licia woke up from her sleep, deeply shaken by his words, fearful that her fiancé might leave her. Then came a knock at the door. A palace maid entered and told her that on this very day, Souma would be honoring those who succeeded in the examination before the entire kingdom, and that Licia's presence was essential. At once, she prepared herself to attend the ceremony. We moved to the royal hall, where Souma sat on the throne with the event being broadcast live. The ceremony was truly majestic. The honor was to be given to the 5 most talented people in the kingdom. 4 of them bowed their heads respectfully before the king, but the 5th refused. The guards ordered her to show respect to the king as the others had, but she flatly refused and declared, "It's not the way of the warriors of my tribe to bow to anyone, no matter his position, except only the chief of the tribe." The captain of the guard grew angry and said, "Do you even realize what you're saying, girl?" But Souma stepped in and asked everyone to feel at ease, so they all relaxed their posture. It was then revealed that each of those honored had a unique talent. They began with a girl named Aisha, who belonged to the Dark Elves. Her homeland was the sacred forest. To everyone's surprise, Souma showed knowledge of everything about the Dark Elves through his study of books. It became clear that Aisha was the most talented warrior in the entire kingdom. Souma wished to give her a great reward, but she refused and instead made a request. She said, "My homeland, the sacred forest, has suffered a sudden devastation. The plants and trees no longer grow, which puts my tribe in grave danger. Therefore, I ask you to save us and tell us the solution." He paused for a moment thinking, then asked her, "When was the last time you pruned the trees?" Aisha looked at him in surprise and replied, "And what does prune even mean?" He smiled and said, "Now I understand the problem." He then began to explain. When you prune the large trees, sunlight reaches the smaller ones and they grow properly. But because the branches of the larger trees get tangled, the smaller trees are blocked from sunlight. Therefore, the branches of the larger trees must be cut from time to time, so that sunlight can reach the smaller plants in the soil, allowing them to grow healthily. And this is the main reason behind the destruction of the sacred forest. When Aisha heard this, she believed him completely, bowed to him in respect, and asked him to come with her to the sacred forest to teach her tribe how to prune, so that the forest could be saved as quickly as possible. Then we moved on to the second talented person named Juna, the most beautiful girl in the entire kingdom, whose gift was singing with a voice so melodious and pure. At that moment, Souma asked her to sing a song from his own world. He took out his phone, and no one in the hall even knew what that device was. Juna focused on the song she heard from him, then began to sing it with great skill. Her performance was astonishing, filling everyone with joy and amazement, and they applauded her enthusiastically. The atmosphere was filled with delight and wonder. Then we came to the third talent, whose name was Poncho. He stood tall for a moment, but suddenly collapsed to the ground. That's when we learned that his gift was eating. Yes, as you heard, my friend, the young man had an insatiable appetite, as if he could eat the entire kingdom. When Souma learned of his talent, he rushed to him and shook his hand, saying, "Thank you very much for coming. You arrived at just the right time, because I truly need your gift." Poncho was deeply moved and began to cry, saying, "I was always bullied to the point that I fell into depression, and even lost 4 kilograms of weight." Souma smiled at him and encouraged him, saying, "Believe me, Poncho, you'll be the reason the entire kingdom is saved." And although there was some joke about imprisoning him to save food for people, the true purpose was far greater. Souma wanted to show everyone that a young man like Poncho could reach the king through his gift, inspiring the rest of the people to believe in their own talents and trust in themselves. This was truly something magnificent. Then we reached the 4th talent, named Hakuya. This young man was a true genius in every sense of the word, blessed with a steel-like memory and an exceptional ability to think. When he appeared before the king, we learned that he was passionate about reading in every field, with vast knowledge of science, politics, and history, as well as deep expertise in military tactics, as though he were a minister of defense by himself. Souma offered him the position of overseeing the royal library so he could access the rarest books. But Hakuya confidently replied, "That's wonderful, but allow me to ask for something else. I wish to use my knowledge to support your standing and to place my expertise in every science and field at your disposal. In other words, to become the king's advisor." Souma was surprised by his boldness and said, "If you truly believe yourself worthy of such trust, then I'll give you the chance." Hakuya answered with a sharp smile, "A man like you would never grant me such a chance unless you were certain that I was capable of it." Souma burst out laughing and said, "Enough, Hakuya. You'll expose us in front of everyone. Come to my office after the banquet, and we'll continue this conversation in private." From that moment, we understood that Hakuya would become the king's right hand in the future with the title of the prime minister. Finally, we arrived at the last town of the group, a girl named Tomo, belonging to the clan of the Mystic Wolves. She possessed a truly dangerous gift. She could speak to birds and animals, through his magic and the knowledge he found in books. Souma learned that the origin of her clan was from beyond the kingdom's borders, and that Tomo was a refugee who had come here. Tomo wanted to tell him a serious secret, but she was tense and very afraid. Souma approached her gently and said, "Come now, young lady. Say whatever you wish. No one is listening." At that, Tomo began to speak and revealed to him a most dangerous secret. Souma struggled to keep his composure and asked her, "Does anyone else know this secret?" She replied, "No, only my mother knew of it." Souma then sat on his chair, changing the tone of his voice, and said to her in front of everyone, "Your request is denied." Then he whispered, "But I promise I'll try to help you." He then ordered his deputy, "Bring Tomo to my office after the banquet." He thanked the group for their presence, and they saluted him before the celebration came to an end. After the banquet was over, Tomo sat in the royal office while Souma asked his aides, "Did any of you hear what Tomo told me?" They replied, "No." Her voice wasn't audible at all. Souma then said, reassuring himself, "Good." Then no one heard anything. Through the broadcast of the magic stones, Lycius said to him, "It seems the matter has grown serious, Souma. Would you care to explain the whole story to us?" At that moment, he began to explain, saying, "You of course know that Tomo can speak with animals." They answered, "Yes, we know that." Then he shocked them by saying, "But Tomo can also speak with demons. She understands their language and they understand hers, as though she were one of their own kind." Shock spread to the place and they cried out, "That's impossible. No one can understand the language of demons, nor do they understand the languages of the other races in this world." At that point, Tomo began telling what had happened and said, "I happened to encounter a demon deep in the forest, and to my surprise, I understood his words, and he too was surprised that he could understand mine. We began speaking together, and he told me, 'Flee this place at once before someone else arrives.'" Souma interrupted them, saying, "The ability to communicate with demons could change the balance of the entire war." Lycius said to him, "You mean you want to negotiate with the demons then?" He answered, "Yes, But at present, all the nations have united to fight the demons, and they've agreed that the demon kingdom is an enemy that must be destroyed. If this secret were revealed, some might use it to side with the demons and cause even greater destruction to the lands. Therefore, this matter must remain between us, known to no one else." At that, Tomo sat beside Licia, looking deeply troubled, while Soma tried to reassure them, saying, "We must protect Tomo by any means." He then asked the captain of the guard to personally take on this duty, but his deputy refused, saying, "If we do that, suspicion will only grow around her." He then suggested another idea. It would be better if she were to live in the royal palace, as though the palace had adopted her. Licia was overjoyed at the idea, and Soma approved of it as well. Yet Tomo had another opinion, saying, "I have a family, and it's impossible for me to abandon them and live here alone." Soma replied, "Whether it's you, your family, or any of your relatives, you're all welcome in the royal palace at any time." He then asked his deputy to find suitable work for Tomo, so that no suspicions would arise. The deputy said to him, "Since she can communicate with animals, what do you think of letting her oversee the royal stables?" Soma agreed immediately, and Tomo was overjoyed. Afterwards, Soma was conversing when suddenly a maid entered and told him that Pancho was waiting outside. As soon as Soma heard this, he took Licia and hurried to meet him. After greeting him, we learned that Soma had sent him on an important mission that would benefit the entire kingdom, a mission to collect certain foods from across the realm. Licia couldn't understand it and exclaimed in surprise, "All this fuss over mere food? You're busy with trivial matters." Suddenly, a live broadcast appeared for people, and we saw Juna and Pancho standing together as though presenting a show before the public. Then Soma joined them, announcing to the people that this program would introduce foods unknown to anyone in the kingdom. Soma prepared a grand table to display the dishes. Then his team would arrive to taste them and give their opinions before everyone so that the people might hear their judgments of these new foods. Soma began with the first item. When Pancho entered carrying an octopus, disgust filled the place, but Soma took the octopus and prepared it to make a dish of sushi. When the time came to taste it, the flavor surprised them all to the point that they loved it greatly and were amazed that such delicious food could exist. The people followed the broadcast and said, "We must try eating octopus as well, because we used to throw it away before." The second item was a type of plant found in the forest. As usual, Soma taught them the method of preparation and began cutting it. Then the team ate it eagerly, especially Aisha, who loved this variety so much that even her tribe saw her through the broadcast savoring the food, and became a scandalous disgrace for her. As for the third and final item, it was a type of creature from this world known as the slime. The question was, how could such a thing even be eaten? It was like a balloon filled with water, and if cut, the water would spill to the ground and vanish at once. But Pancho had another opinion, because he knew well how this creature was cooked. At first, he struck the slime with a blow neither too strong nor too weak, and suddenly its core vanished, leaving it ready for cooking. With time, the liquid inside transformed into a flexible substance that could be cut and eaten with ease. Master Pancho began cooking the gelatin and prepared it, and the time for tasting had come. Everyone seemed a little hesitant until he encouraged them, saying, "This dish resembles something called ramen in my world." Of course, the team could hardly believe their ears when they heard those words, and suddenly Soma found himself cornered as they said to him, "Why don't you taste it first and tell us what you think? Bon appetit, your majesty." Soma took a plate, saying, "I brought this upon myself." Then he began eating before them, and the moment he tasted it, he was greatly impressed and continued eating eagerly. His companions and the team were astonished to see him eat with such passion, and they rushed to their plates, eating the food with greed and delight. The scene almost suggested that they were ready to abandon the art of combat to rival Pancho in the art of eating. And so, my friend, the royal food program ended for the day, while the people were filled with joy and interaction to the highest degree. A week later, Soma was seated in his office when the maid entered, telling him that the deputy wished to meet him and was waiting in the royal hall. Soma was puzzled and got up to see what was happening, only to find the deputy and Hakuya there. The deputy then told him that he wished to resign from his post. Soma asked, "Why would you want to do that?" The deputy replied, "The former ruler gave up the throne to you when he saw you more worthy of it than himself. Therefore, I now give up my position as deputy because I see you far superior to me in this role, and I hope you accept my resignation." Soma agreed with his word but added, "You're still in your post until you submit your resignation formally." The man replied, "Very well." Then Hakuya spoke, saying, "Since I'm your future deputy, believe me, you must take a break today and clear your mind. Since you arrived here, you've done nothing but work. And the real reason I say this is because a king must take at least a day off from time to time, so that anyone under his authority may also take leave whenever they need to. This way they'll work with both efficiency and ease." Soma accepted the advice and went to find Licia training with Aisha in martial arts and dueling. Soma was amazed to see them using magic in their combat, and he realized how powerful they were, that if their training continued much longer, they might destroy the place entirely. At that moment, Soma called them, and as they sat together, he told them that they would disguise themselves and go on a tour throughout the kingdom for relaxation. And so they disguised themselves as students of the military academy and took a carriage that carried them to one of the kingdom's cities. There, Soma said, "From now until our return, call me only by my name. No king, no prince. No one should sense our presence." Aisha then laughed, saying, "Shame on you, my friend. From now on, I'll keep calling you the ruler of the kingdom, but I won't say king so that no one suspects." Soma retorted in frustration, "You fool! I feel as though I'm speaking to a mindless creature. Focus with me a little." They continued their path, walking through the town for a while. After some time, Aisha felt hungry, so Soma suggested that they eat at Juna's restaurant. It turned out that Juna had opened a restaurant nearby. They went there, and as soon as they entered, Juna greeted them joyfully. Soma quickly said to her, "Do you remember me or not? I'm the silk merchant from the kingdom of Chino. I hope you still remember me." At that moment, Juna understood his intent and smiled, replying, "Of course, I remember you. How have you been?" Of course. She didn't tease him further, but the meaning was clear. Then they sat at one of the tables to have lunch, and they ordered the gelatin. We noticed Juna speaking to Soma with great kindness, and Soma was quite taken with her. But suddenly Licia interrupted, saying, "Control yourself, man, before I take matters into my own hands." Soma then looked toward Aisha, finding her completely absorbed in the food, and he teased, "It seems you wish to rival Poncho in his talent for eating." But that's it for now. Subscribe for more in the future.